My name is Elena, 30 years old. I understood when Mom said, "We just can't afford the flight." I cried quietly, but I let it go. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her. But 3 weeks later, Aunt Carol's Instagram told me a story that made my heart fall to the floor. I was at a cousin's housewarming, holding a toddler in my arms while plastic cups clinked and someone's Bluetooth speaker blasted a song from our high school days. Aunt Carol shouted, "Group photo!" and everyone shuffled onto the new pool deck. Bare feet, sun glinting off the water, laughter that felt effortless. And then I saw it. Mom, cocktail in hand, straw hat perched perfectly, smiling ear to ear. The caption, "Best family vacation ever, sun, laughs, and zero stress." My throat closed. I froze, the toddler squirming against me. Alex leaned over, quiet as ever. "Is that—" "Mom," I whispered. The realization hit like a cold slap. The resort was the same one near the airport, the weekday deal we'd seen last year, and yet she had said she couldn't afford flights to see us. I picked up my phone and typed 3 words. "How was it?" A heart emoji came back. Then, oh, it was spontaneous. Spontaneous, that word tasted bitter. Alex didn't say anything. He just sat next to me, steady, while the room's laughter and the poolside chatter became a background hum that felt too loud. My mind started ticking through numbers. The travel fund we'd set aside for almost a year, $200 a month, so my parents could come see our new apartment. Screenshots, green bars slowly growing over months, all meant for their visit. They'd said they'd hold it until flights dropped. And now, apparently, it had been spent on cocktails with sugared rims and inflatable swans. I put my phone down, then picked it back up, staring at that image again. The straw hat, the one I'd complimented last summer because she said she couldn't afford a new one, the caption glowing, the likes rolling in. My chest tightened. Not anger, not yet. Something cooler, like a line being drawn quietly beneath me, separating who I was from who they expected me to be. That night, I couldn't sleep. I made coffee in the early hours and sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, fingers hovering over the keyboard as I brought up our bank history. Each number, each transfer, moved across the screen like clues in a puzzle I hadn't wanted to solve. Sunshine travel, Lux Lounge, airport parking, everything matched up. Heart emojis, sparkle emojis, payments to Carol D labeled vaguely, casually. Alex's hand brushed mine, a reminder to breathe. He didn't lecture. He never did. He simply asked, "Do you want to know where the money went?" I nodded, my voice tight. "Yes, and I'm scared to find out." He squeezed my hand, calm as always. We looked, and the ledger revealed the truth. Money meant for my parents' visit, for their flights to see our home, had been diverted, spent on luxuries and surprises no one had asked for. Growing up, I had always been the organizer, the one who made things happen, the one who filled the gaps no one noticed until it was too late. My sister Laya, funny and photogenic, always the favorite. Mom cheering her on with glitter emojis, posting captions like "Heart of a CEO," while my spreadsheets, my careful plans, were stressful and negative. It wasn't fair. It wasn't petty. It was the repeated pattern of my value being measured by how I could serve. In my 20s, Alex had become my anchor. Gentle, grounded, patient. He watched me justify sending money here and there, always just until, always without a date, and he never judged me for it. He only ever asked quietly, "What's the plan for next time?" when I hadn't planned anything. But this, seeing the pool photo, the evidence on the screen, was different. It wasn't about planning, it was about trust, and it was broken. By the next week, I found myself in the office of a lawyer named Jenna, recommended by a friend. The walls were lined with certificates, and one plant thrived in a way my own plants never did. I slid my meticulously compiled folder across the desk. Jenna read it all, page by page, steady, unflinching. When she looked up, her voice was calm, precise. "We have 3 buckets. The travel fund, with a clear written purpose, the inheritance that should have gone to you directly, and miscellaneous transfers that suggest a pattern. We'll send a demand letter, secure your accounts, and not engage in emotional arguments over the phone." Alex's presence beside me was quiet but essential. I exhaled, feeling both the weight and relief of action. By the time we left, my phone was buzzing. Mom, Dad, Laya, multiple times each. But Jenna had told me not to respond. Not yet. And in that quiet ride home, I realized the truth. These moments don't explode suddenly. They accumulate like a junk drawer stuffed with unpaid bills, forgotten rubber bands, and unopened letters. And then one day, the drawer won't close, and you are forced to confront everything. I was ready. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with Alex leaning against the counter, coffee in hand, silent but present. I reopened the bank history, staring at each transaction until the numbers blurred. Sunshine Travel, Lux Lounge, airport parking, cash transfers labeled family reimbursements. The dates aligned with Aunt Carol's pool photos. My carefully saved travel fund, the money meant to bring my parents to our home, had been siphoned away, one round trip at a time. I remembered the conversations from my childhood like a faint echo. Laya needed dance classes. Mom found a scholarship. I asked for a calculator. Can't you borrow, Dad said, joking about letters and math. If Leia forgot her lunch, Mom drove across town. If I forgot mine, I learned to like water. And through it all, I learned to calculate, plan, and absorb the gaps others left behind. Now, as I traced dollar signs across the screen, the same old pattern was repeating. Only now it carried the weight of betrayal, not ignorance. Each heart emoji on a transfer, each casual text asking for bridge money, felt like a tiny nail in the coffin of trust. I realized that generosity and naivety had become indistinguishable. I had bled slowly for them, believing love could cover all. Alex slid into the chair next to me, his presence a steadying force. "Do you want to confront this?" he asked, calm but probing. "Yes," I whispered, "but I need to do it right. Not angry, not emotional, calculated." That's when I started gathering everything. Screenshots of text threads, transfer receipts, the subtle messages embedded in Just.Until payments, and the inheritance that should have gone directly to me. I remembered when Grandma passed. The small inheritance, not life-changing, but enough to pay down student loans. Mom offered to hold it to protect me from taxes or interest. I had trusted her, and she had spent it, without telling me, on vacations and gifts that weren't mine. By the time we reached Jenna's office, my hands were shaky but purposeful. She guided me through every folder, every bank statement, separating the emotional from the actionable. Her methodical approach was oddly comforting. She made it clear, family disputes are messy, but documentation is truth. We will not let them gaslight you into thinking it's okay. It was the first time I realized that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes boundaries are necessary, even with those you care for most. We planned strategically, demand letters, account locks, and clear communication. No arguments over phone calls, no emotional pleading, just facts. And the next step, the confrontation, would need to be as composed as it was firm. Back home, I sat with Alex in the living room, the city lights spilling through the window, and finally let myself breathe. The tension that had built over months, the small, almost imperceptible betrayals, the constant taking without acknowledgement, started to settle into resolve. But even as I felt that quiet strength, a shadow lingered. Laya, my sister, always so confident, so untouchable, so loved. Would she understand the necessity of what I was about to do, or would she see me as the villain for demanding what was rightfully mine? I thought about Mom and Dad, the way they had subtly weighted our childhoods, my usefulness, Laya's privilege, the way love and obligation had been intertwined with control, and I knew confrontation was not just about money. It was about reclaiming dignity, about teaching them that the line they had quietly eroded needed to be redrawn. That evening, Alex cooked, while I continued to organize evidence. The smell of garlic and olive oil filled the apartment, a rare comfort in the storm brewing outside. We spoke little, the silence between us a shared shield. Every so often he'd glance at me and ask softly, "Ready?" And I'd nod, even though my stomach twisted with nerves. I thought about how family can twist affection into expectation, how a kind gesture can become an unspoken demand, how the ones who raised you can sometimes take what they gave as leverage, leaving you both grateful and guilty. And yet amidst all of it, I felt a strange clarity. The ledger, the text messages, the transfers, they were proof. Proof that my instincts, my unease, my small heartbreaks were valid. Proof that I could act without apology. I slept poorly that night, haunted by the pool photo replaying in my mind, Mom's carefree laughter, the glitter of the sun on her cocktail rim. But I also dreamed of control, the quiet satisfaction of setting boundaries, of facing the truth, and of finally having Alex beside me through it all. The next day, we prepared for the demand letters. Jenna instructed me on phrasing: misappropriation, constructive trust, return of funds within 10 business days, words that felt sharp, precise, unyielding. I printed one copy, imagining Mom's reaction. Would she cry, deny, beg? I didn't know, but this time I was not afraid to be firm. Alex took my hand as we left the office. "You're not alone," he said. And for the first time in months, I felt a strange mixture of fear and freedom. The fear of the confrontation, the freedom of finally taking action on my own terms. That evening, my phone buzzed incessantly. 23 missed calls from Mom, 17 texts from Leia, a flurry from relatives long forgotten. But Jenna's words echoed in my head. Do not respond yet. I stared at the screen, the flood of messages, a physical representation of everything I had suppressed, and I realized, with a clarity I hadn't felt in years, that this was only the beginning. The first real step in asserting my life, my choices, my money, and my boundaries. I didn't answer. I didn't flinch. I sat quietly, letting Alex's steady presence anchor me. The storm of texts and calls would rage, but I would remain calm, because for the first time I was not just supporting, filling gaps, or bleeding slowly. I was claiming myself. Sunday evening arrived, and with it, a tension I could feel in the air like static. Alex stayed close, quiet, patient, the steadying force I had come to rely on. The dinner invitation from Mom had come with an unspoken ultimatum. No lawyers, no drama, just family time. But I knew better. Family time was a stage, and I was about to act under their lights. The table was perfect. Magazine ready, cloth napkins, sparkling glasses, polished silverware. Laya sat across from me, linen dress flowing, eyes alert. Dad stood in the kitchen, apron snug, pretending to be a jovial cook, though we all knew the only cooking he did was for appearances. Mom greeted us with a kiss that landed somewhere between obligation and rehearsed affection. "You look tired," she said. "Stress ages you. Sit." Her tone carried that familiar mixture of condescension and care. I sat, hands folded in my lap, fingers pressed together to still the tremor I felt inside. For 10 minutes, we endured polite conversation. Weather, work, cousins' baby milestones. Laya occasionally giggled at a text on her phone, clearly oblivious to the tension building like a low drumbeat beneath us. Then, Mom set down her fork with a deliberate clink and looked at me, her voice soft but tinged with accusation. "Elena, explain this letter." I inhaled slowly, letting the words settle before releasing them like a measured arrow. "It's a demand to return the travel funds set aside for your visit and my inheritance that was mismanaged." The words landed like stones in the polished room. Dad barked a short laugh, disbelief and irritation curling at the edges. "Inheritance? From us? We managed that." "You mismanaged it," I said evenly, voice firm, steady. "On vacations, on luxuries you said you couldn't afford." Laya snorted. "Okay, accountant," she said. Her gaze flicked to Alex as if to test me, to see whether I would falter. I didn't. I turned back to her. "Did you know the travel fund was for flights to visit us? We sent the balance updates, reminders, screenshots. Did you know?" She shrugged, a single shoulder raised, casual, dismissive. "Plans changed." "You didn't tell me," I said. "You told Aunt Carol to tag you in best family vacation ever, though. That's public. That's lying." Mom slapped her napkin onto the table, sharp and sudden. "I will not be humiliated in my own home." Alex's hand brushed mine under the table, a reminder to breathe. I let it anchor me. Dad leaned forward, voice sharp. "We raised you. We kept a roof over your head. The least you can do is open my wallet when you feel like it." "I already did that," I said, "for years." Mom's eyes flashed, a mixture of anger, panic, and disbelief. "We are family. Money flows." "Not without consent," I replied, calm. The silence that followed felt heavy, almost unbearable. The weight of decades of expectations, obligations, and unspoken rules pressed down. Dad sputtered, as if my single word, consent, was obscene. I raised my hands deliberately, counting off the points I had rehearsed. 3 things. 1. The travel fund is returned in full. 2. My inheritance is repaid by Friday via wire. 3. You remove my information from any app, card, or bill that is not mine. Going forward, no loans, no holds, no just until. If you need help, you can ask, and I can say yes or no. Mom's mouth trembled. This isn't about revenge? She whispered. No, I said, voice calm, deliberate, the room stilling as if even the walls were listening. It's about closure. I'm closing a door that should have been closed all along. Laya rolled her eyes. You love drama. This is me loving my own money, I said flatly. Dad's face flushed, the color rising like a tide. Alex leaned in, soft but unwavering. Family doesn't need to hide their spending. If you needed the money, you could have asked. Mom suddenly cried, real or practiced, I couldn't tell. You're tearing this family apart. It's not about margaritas, I said, the calm in my voice cutting through the room. It's about lying, expectations, and the way you made me feel petty for caring about numbers while shopping in duty-free. Dad's chair scraped as he rose. Get out, he barked. I stood, unshaken. Send the wire by Friday, I said. And we never talk about money again. We talk about peaches, weather, books, but not money. Mom sobbed harder. Laya muttered under her breath, You'll regret this. I picked up my bag. I regret not doing it sooner. We walked out into the night air, cold and sharp, like a wash that cleared the residue of years of frustration and quiet guilt. In the car, I stared at my hands. They looked like mine, finally. The first day after that dinner, my phone buzzed endlessly. 23 missed calls from Mom, 11 from Dad, 17 texts from Laya, plus messages from distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Your mother is heartbroken. Money comes and goes. Family is forever. Call me. I muted everything. I made tea. I opened my work laptop, letting the hum of mundane tasks anchor me. Life outside their expectations carried on. Lunch passed in silence, punctuated only by the occasional glance at the muted phone. By afternoon, I sent a single work message. Family drama, I'm fine. The day ended quietly, though the storm of words and emotion lingered in the shadows. For the first time, I understood that boundaries were not cruelty. They were survival, and the act of asserting them, firm but kind, was not betrayal, but a reclaiming of myself. The morning after the confrontation, the apartment felt strangely heavy, yet oddly free. The silence was punctuated only by the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. Alex poured coffee and handed me a cup without a word. That simple gesture felt like a tether to reality, reminding me that some things in life didn't require negotiation or justification. My phone, of course, had erupted again. Group texts, private messages, missed calls, Mom pleading, Dad lecturing, Laya oscillating between guilt and irritation. Jenna's voice echoed in my mind. Do not respond until the funds arrive. I obeyed, letting the silence be my shield. The first few hours were hard. Every buzz, every notification felt like a drumbeat, a reminder that my family still expected me to bend, to absorb, to forgive without accountability. I reminded myself, boundaries were not walls to push others away. They were lines drawn to protect the self. By midday, the initial shock had passed. I washed dishes mindlessly, Alex beside me, occasionally nudging me to sit down. I started to notice small things. The warmth of sunlight on the counter, the aroma of coffee mixing with the lingering scent of last night's garlic. Life had its rhythm, even amidst chaos. Then came Laya's attempts at reconciliation. She sent a message. If you're really about closure, prove it. Put the money back into a family account where we can all access it. I stared at the screen, reading and rereading the words. She didn't understand. Closure wasn't shared access or performative generosity. Closure was about reclaiming my agency, my peace, and my dignity. I typed back simply, no. Then I put her on Do Not Disturb. I didn't want to fight her, argue with her, or justify my choices. I wanted quiet, focus, and a return to normalcy. Even Grandpa called, FaceTime from his recliner, the angle showing too much ceiling. I don't understand all this online stuff, he said, but I know lying when I see it. Proud of you for doing the hard thing kindly. That's rare, I cried, Not the wailing kind, but the quiet, hot tears that come when your body decides it's time to unclench. Alex hugged me, silent but understanding, letting me release without words. Days trickled by. Mom continued her texts, desperate, alternating between heartbreak and accusation. Dad showed up unannounced at our building, buzzers sounding like alarms in a submarine. I refused entry, texted him firmly. Send the wire by Friday. Meanwhile, life outside the family storm persisted. We bought a secondhand dresser at a local thrift store, arguing gently over peaches versus nectarines at the farmer's market. I slept through the night, the first time in months that it felt like luxury rather than a fragile necessity. Friends reached out, curious and concerned. One invited me to try pottery. I said yes, without checking with anyone else, without needing permission, without worrying about the fallout. The world didn't end. I didn't crumble. I existed outside their expectations, and it was quietly, beautifully liberating. By Friday, the bank notifications arrived. Funds received. The travel fund, the inheritance, minus minor processing fees. Jenna confirmed the transfers. Relief was a strange, still sensation. Heavy, but clean. My phone buzzed with a photo from Mom. The family dinner table, an empty chair where I would have sat. Caption: "This is what money does to families." I stared at it, long and carefully. The empty chair wasn't mine. It belonged to the version of me that never asked questions, never demanded honesty, never reclaimed her agency. That version of me was gone. We returned to normal life slowly. No one invited us to dinner. I cooked pasta and we ate on the couch, not setting a second plate, letting the quiet be a small rebellion and a form of peace. The storm had passed outwardly, but inside, a quiet, steady sense of control had taken root. Even Laya's social media posts, once a source of subtle guilt and comparison, now felt like background noise. She posted quotes, photos, snapshots of her life. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. For the first time, her choices, Mom's expectations, Dad's criticism, they had no power over my emotional ledger. The aftermath was quiet, not dramatic. Liberation often isn't cinematic in the way others expect. It's the small, mundane reclamation of space, attention, and choice. And for the first time in years, I felt it fully. I belonged to myself. Weeks had passed since the confrontation, yet the echoes lingered. My phone was quieter now, though not silent. Mom had stopped calling incessantly, but messages still arrived, carefully worded, tentative, almost pleading. Dad's sharp commentary had softened, replaced by curt updates about family events I no longer felt obligated to attend. And Laya, she oscillated between sarcasm and guilt, her messages hinting at frustration and sometimes longing. I had never realized how much of myself I had given away in the name of being the responsible one. Every dollar, every favor, every overlooked slight, it had built a life where my needs were secondary, my voice quiet. And yet, in reclaiming them, I faced a paradox. The satisfaction of asserting myself collided with the guilt instilled by decades of expectation. Alex and I spent evenings untangling the weight of it together. He was my anchor, my mirror, and my reminder that life could exist outside their judgment. Sometimes we would sit silently on the couch, watching a show where nothing bad happened, letting the comfort of mundanity remind me that joy could exist without guilt. But the real reckoning came when Mom tried a new tactic, subtle emotional manipulation. "You're so distant now, Elena," she texted. "I just want my daughter back." There was no question here, only accusation disguised as longing. I stared at the screen, feeling the familiar tug, old reflexes, ingrained guilt, but I reminded myself, I am not obligated to validate manipulation. Grandpa's voice continued to be a quiet counterpoint. His occasional calls, filled with gentle pride and understanding, reminded me that the truth had allies, even in the chaos. "You did the right thing, even if they can't see it," he said once, and I let the words settle into my chest like sunlight through clouds. And then Laya reached out again. This time it was quieter, less confrontational. "Can we just talk, Elena? I feel like we're all lost right now." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to rush forward, to explain, to justify, but another part, stronger now, knew that some conversations required patience. I typed back, "I'm willing to talk about life, not money." It was a small line in the sand, but one that changed everything. By refusing to merge money with emotion, I was forcing a new kind of dialogue, one based on honesty, not expectation, not obligation, not debt. Life began to settle into a rhythm I hadn't known I could have. I started cooking more deliberately, experimenting with recipes I liked rather than ones that would impress anyone. I took Alex on spontaneous weekend trips, small, unplanned adventures, and I signed up for that pottery class just because I wanted to, not because it was expected or convenient. The family still loomed like shadows at the edge of every decision. Invitations arrived selectively, always with subtle pressure baked in, but I had learned the art of quiet deflection, the discipline of saying no without apology. And in those refusals, I discovered a strange, exhilarating freedom. One evening, while sorting through old photographs, I paused on one of Mom and Dad with Leia as a child, glitter emojis decorating the margins of the album. A pang of nostalgia, tender, complicated, and painful. I realized that the reckoning wasn't just for them, it was for me too. I had spent years measuring my worth by their approval, their acknowledgement, their manipulations. Now I measured it by my choices, my agency, and my ability to act with integrity even when it hurt. And as I looked at Alex, who had watched every step with patience, understanding, and unwavering support, I knew something fundamental. The reckoning wasn't over, and perhaps it never would be fully. Family could be messy, manipulative, and loving all at once. But I had drawn my line, and within that line, I had found a sense of self I hadn't realized was missing. The days that followed were quiet but charged with subtle victories. I didn't reply to provocation. I didn't over-explain. I let silence be my shield, patience my strategy, and integrity my guide. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, I felt the emotional weight of a lifetime begin to lift. I was still their daughter, I was still Laya's sister, but I was finally, fully, irrevocably my own.